I'm Lloyd Hartley, the Special Education Director for the Alsea Online Charter Schools. I live up in Columbia County, and I travel down here a couple of times a week to be able to help support our special ed students. Marc and I met about 15 years ago. I was a former superintendent for about 16 years, and we met. I think we were probably the youngest two superintendents in the state at the time. And we just we hit it off really well and got to know each other, learned to trust each other, and just became friends over the years. When I decided that I needed to take a break from the superintendency, this position opened up, and I talked to Marc, and I said, because I've got a background in special education as well, as part of the dual roles that superintendents plays, not even dual roles, but the multiple roles. Part of that's been a special ed director. So I've been involved in special ed my entire educational career. And we talked about opening up this charter school and how the students are going to come in with special needs and all sorts of diverse needs, and especially how that's going to impact the online world. And I thought that looking at the programs that Alsea had put together, this sounds like a great place to be able to benefit some truly underserved kids. And when I came here, the first question out of my mouth was, Marc, are we going to actually be able to sustain and support these kids as the needs arise? Because we weren't even sure what they were going to be. And he said, absolutely. That's why I want you here. You know how to pick out what those are. And one of the greatest things about this job this year, and it was my first year full-time here, every time the parents needed something, we were able to provide that support. So what a wonderful place to be when in our special ed role, we're able to say yes to what's best for the kids, what's best for the families, and be able to provide them complete access to the general education curriculum that they need and the extra support that they need as well. So it's been a wonderful program that has been in the making for 3 or 4 years, and it's just culminating into a really special online program that my son's involved in it now too. He started it. I have a 7th grader that's in this program, and he started up this year, and he has just made leaps and bounds academically, being able to get any type of support that he needs, and always feels like he's a part of something bigger.
Well, I want to thank you, because I think the most humorous comment you ever made to me, and probably the best compliment, because there's been very few in 15 years, but because we go way back, but I think when you came up to me about 3 months in, and we were in the midst of the COVID, and remember that around Thanksgiving time, and we were onboarding online kids at a rate we've never seen before, because Dr. Hartley and his team were serving kids, and then people who have other kids with special needs know kids with special needs and other families, and the word of mouth went around. And I remember it was quite a scramble, but in the midst of it, we never said no to families, and we did some really creative things. And so, the credit goes back to you and your team, and the way that you maintained the confidence of the parents as we onboarded them. It was it really is special, and the retention that we're seeing as we look into next year from a lot of these families is much higher than we anticipated as well. So.
Right. So for parents that thought this was just going to be a stopping point for a year, until whatever their home districts were going to do, have said, no, we found a home here, and we're staying here. And that has to do with, like I said, the program that's been put in place, not just through special ed, but talking with the general ed teachers and the staff that's become a part of this. Like I said, to be a part of something that is bigger than what you thought it was going to be, and being part of something that is just continually growing and seeing actual student outcomes and students improve, and getting that support from not only from the superintendent, but the community around here is supporting. I mean, the kids that are all over Oregon, they're Alsea kids, just like the kids that are walking through the doors right there. And you really feel that coming in. And that's why, I don't always have to come down here a couple of days a week, because I come down to get the paperwork, to meet everything, and to get all that logistics done. But I come down here just to be a part of it. And it's the highlight of it. It's been one of the best years of my educational career, being right here in Alsea. Well, I think it all came down to, and it's a cliche, everybody says we do what's best for kids. But at the end of the day, what has been best for kids, maybe not what has been best for kids that are surviving in what we call the brick and mortar schools, is that they need to be in the brick and mortar schools. And that was not looking for the right word, but a truism as far as this is what Alsea is about. We will open whenever we can open, and we're going to do everything we can to make it safe for kids. But priority one is getting kids into the building. The extensive prep work that went into the springtime and the summertime to make sure everything was set up, and to be open, to be knowledgeable about because issues are always going to come up. When they come up, we didn't have to think about what we were going to do. It was already planned. So that's what was different, is the focus and goal from pre-day one was kids belong in school, wherever the parents and families want to send them, and we will offer that. And that's where it took a lot of courage. It took a lot of leading without fear to do this, and to be one of the few districts, if not one of the only I-5 corridor districts, to be opened with students in person. A tremendous accomplishment, not only to the logistics of it, but just having the courage and the ability to follow through on that courage is what really spoke volumes, and honestly made me want to be able to be a part of this, be a part of something special.
Well, and I'll add to that, because one of the reasons, and you already know this, but try to be humble, but complimenting you is quite difficult, because we go again where you met. But by the way, it felt like 15 years we've been friends.
Yeah,
that's a long time. So the humor of it is the reason why I called Dr. Hartley and said, hey, you don't have to come, and I know you're not necessarily looking for this kind of work, but we're in the midst of this historic situation, and I need your help, and you're the guy for the job, and so let's make this work. And when he volunteered to step up and to put this in place, I can tell you that the actual experience of this past school year is really a compliment to what Dr. Hartley brings to the table, which is his mutual understanding, the same understanding we have here on staff, that success with out-of-the-box kids or special needs kids begins with the confidence that we can maintain with households and parents. And really, you've been humble about it, but I think, and you've been jested when you joked, hey, I don't have to say no in this job. And of course, my retort is yes, and it's very expensive. But you can't argue with the results. So, it really is another example of just another Oregon citizen, through the network stepping up and saying, yeah, I'll put myself out and I'll drive down and I'll spend a couple days a week. And it really is remarkable, and thank you for being willing to stay with us, because I have a feeling the best is yet to come.
Absolutely. Right. When I was a superintendent, when we met as a superintendent in Glendale, and then moving on when I went to Clatskanie, things would always come up. If it wasn't a budget issue, if it wasn't a labor issue. So Mark and I, we would talk about, difficult policy changes that are coming up, or, labor negotiations, which are always sensitive. And how do we get through those things? And one of the things that I always saw with Mark, after we would talk through things and after I'd hear what was going on or what the plan was Mark always had the executive functioning skills to be able to, under stress, be able to stay calm, think clearly, and make the right choices for the community and the kids. And that's a unique gift that we don't see, because a lot of times when we're under stress, our brains don't want to function as well. We know that chemically, that they shut down and they go into survival mode. And Mark doesn't do that. The executive functioning stays there. He doesn't go into survival mode. He goes into the mode of, how are we going to be successful? How are we going to make this a win for everybody? Because he's always got that higher order thinking that comes with the high executive functioning, that makes him just be able to do these kind of things that we're doing right now in Alsea.
there's a secret to that. It's because I eat stress like candy. See, it's so good. It's like Skittles. You just want more.
That's right. One of the things that Mark and I had conversations early on about, especially, we're talking about it always came up with, I'd come back to labor negotiations or new policies, or like when the budgets were really troublesome back in the day. And I would struggle with trying to figure out what the right decision is. And, he'd coach me through it and say, well, Lloyd, at the end of the day, you just really need to make sure that you love those kids that you're serving as much as you love your own kids. And that your decisions have to be based on each and every one of those kids are your own. And those are the kinds of things that really cemented our friendship, because he taught me a lot about making sure that I've always got that view on, okay, if this was my kid in this situation, what would I need for them? And some of those kids, they can't always advocate for themselves. They're young, or the families don't know how to advocate for themselves. So who's going to advocate for them? And if the leaders aren't going to advocate for them, then nobody will. And that's one of the great lessons that Mark taught me over the years is look through the eyes. You've got to love them as much as if they're your own kid. And that has helped me be able to make some of those difficult decisions.
I think one of the best things about having a longtime friend in the business, superintendents have a short tenure in most districts. I think the average, 2.7 years, or it was 1.7, but thanks to you and I, we raised it to 2.7 after 15 years. So we have that going for us. But the real issue is when you take on some of the things that I have stepped up to take on, whether it's writing laws or policy, working on SIA funding. Remember when I came up with the solution to PERS? Wasn't that fun? That was a good one. The thing is, that didn't endear me to a lot of powerful forces in the state, and I tend to do policy and politics on a stick-to-itiveness. We start with principles that make sense, that the majority of people can agree on. We focus on kids as individuals, parents and families, and then we work to solutions regardless of the political ramifications on either side, whether it's Democrat or Republican or conservative or liberal or progressive. It really doesn't matter. Solutions are solutions, and the downside is I do not have this the same set of friends that I had when I started. Many of those friends are now in the opposite camp, the not so friend camp, and Dr. Hartley has stuck with me based on his core principles. At the end of the day, he's like, I'm bagging you, Mark. And what's really special about that, I don't think I've ever shared that with you, being able to call in the midst of controversy when other colleagues of ours would be saying, Mark, back down, they're gonna take you out, they're gonna cancel you. And then I call you and you're like, go Thielman. It means a lot, and there were 3 or 4 times where you gave me the little boost I needed to stick with things. And my poor wife can attest that sometimes I get stressed out, and so I really want to thank you for sticking with me. And your values, your core values, are showing in the service you're providing here to our Alsea kids. I just didn't want to waste you on any other district, so I had to hire you to come down and work for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Means a lot.
Appreciate that. So one of the things we learn about, any investigation, whether it's through a complaint procedure, through a school district, through legislation, or through group affiliations with COSA, Department of Ed, whatever they are, the great thing about us being public entities or a quasi-public entity is that there's a process for everything. And yes, sometimes those things have to be aired out in the open, but there's no other way to handle it. If you're looking at using taxpayer dollars to make sure that you've got the best administrators out there and you've got the best people that are serving the kids, there has to be an open dialogue for that. Mm-hmm. And so what we do whenever we have a complaint or anything like that is we follow the process. And inevitably, by taking the time to follow the process, follow all of the steps, take the time to interview everybody that's involved, the truth comes out. Mm-hmm. And the truth is usually comes down to a pattern of behavior over time. And when we look at a pattern of behavior over time, when it comes to Marc Thielman as a superintendent, advocating for kids, doing what's right for kids, and working and mentoring other people, that's why I'm here. That's why I love working in Alsea and love working for Marc Thielman.
Well, I appreciate that. Again, you're being too humble, because sometimes being under investigation, as you know, I sometimes tell you that there's opportunity. There's opportunity under investigation to go through the process and then come out the other side of that process. One, it's always good to be exonerated and have the facts aired out, but the best outcome is when it leads to better business, better policies, better relationships, and we've experienced that time and time again. And so it's kind of like a pilot when the airplane has a problem. Most people would prefer to jump out with a parachute, but pilots, if you interview them, they know the plane, they know the aerodynamics and how to fly, and they tend to be comfortable trying to land the plane. I'm a little bit like an investigative pilot that way, my friend. So again, I prefer when the plane just works, but if it doesn't, that's what we do.
Well, that's part of it. You take a look at any person that comes under any type of investigation. We have to ask ourselves, well, why did this happen? And we've had some old mentors in our time. And one of the mentors that said to us, it says, well, of course you're under investigation. You're doing something. And so the mere fact that you're trying to do something that's best for kids, and it might rub some people the wrong way here and there, or there might be, a side issue or whatever that comes up. But at the end of the day, if you're fighting to be doing what's right for kids, somebody's going to file a complaint. Yeah. It's inevitable. And so having a complaint filed against you is not necessarily a bad thing. It means that you're out there trying to make a difference.
Well, and that's... Do you remember the time we were at this years ago at the Small Schools Conference, and one of our colleagues was under ethics investigation? Yeah. Remember that?
Yeah.
And she'd never been, complained about before, and remember it really bothered her, and she just verbalized to the whole group. There must have been 25, 30 superintendents, and remember I was over by the coffee pot, and I didn't know how to help her because I could tell she was really upset. So remember I just jumped in and said, hey, raise your hand if you've ever been turned into TSPC with an ethics complaint. And almost every hand in that room came up. I'll never forget it. It was powerful, was it not?
Right. That it's a common thing.
Yeah.
With how easy it is to file complaints. And I think one of the difficulties with it is the process takes so long. Yeah. And so some complaints that could be resolved, that maybe only a day is spent doing all of the work, but it can drag out for years. And so when we look at having a complaint against somebody or an investigation's happening, that's part of the daily life of being a superintendent and of being a school leader, and we learn to roll with it.
Yeah, we do. And, being calm in that situation, I think, is really critical, because you're modeling for your whole staff, because word gets around, people talk, and, it's a stick-to-itiveness, see, and you have to stay in the leadership position and be calm in the storm. And and that has carried, us through all these years. It's a tough job being a superintendent or running a school district, but it's work worth doing.
And that's where we come back to that executive functioning, where a lot of times people under stress, we don't think well, we don't make rational decisions. But that's what I've seen out of Marc is with the executive functioning, it's able to step back, make rational decisions under stress, and keep moving, keep going forward. I can't think of anybody else that would have opened under the circumstances here in Alsea other than Marc Thielman. And that speaks volumes to his ability to work through policy, help create policy, help guide policy, help implement policy, and see it through for the betterment of kids. And that's...
The proof is in the pudding. It's been good to be open all year.
Yeah.
It's been great seeing kids back in school.
Very good under stress, deep passion for doing what's right for kids and for policy in general. When we're looking at it's not just, it's about making life better for everyone around them. As you look through even the Alsea School District, as there's had to be a tremendous amount of hiring and shifting with everything that's going on, every person here has felt valued and a part of something bigger than themselves. So when we've had to be told, hey, we need you over here, we know you love doing X, but I've got to have you do Y right now, overwhelmingly people are going, well, yes, what can I do to help? And that's the piece about Marc Thielman being governor, the ability to see a bigger picture, the ability to motivate people to create those win-win situations. It's not win or lose with Marc, it's win and win. So everybody benefits, from policies, from kids to finances to whatever it is. We're looking for a way that everybody improves, even if they don't necessarily agree with all the politics all the time. You know, at the time, it was surprising because, you know, I had a vision of what my position was going to be when I started, and then saw how it morphed very quickly. But then, as I looked at it, you know, because I'm thinking, okay, we're opening up a charter school, it's going to be online, it's going to be this, and I'm like, okay, well, how unique is unique, right? And then when I got here and I continued to learn more about the program and saw how it was about relationships, it was about drawing kids in, about having them want to be here. And then, as we talked before about, you know, we talk about, you know, special ed and how special ed grows, so does general ed, you know, and so word of mouth got around very quickly. And it wasn't just like we see this incremental growth and then it was boom. So that shows you that people talked, and then the jump was made. And that's where, at the end of the day, Oregon is a small state. And word travels very fast. And that's how this program just skyrocketed beyond all expectations.
Well, I think it was, what did we say, almost 400% growth from roughly 250 kids between the pre-COVID online and the brick and mortar to, I think at our highest in May, we were over 900 kids being served. Doubled the size of the staff, more than doubled the revenue for the district. Did all that growth and moving around and still kept everybody together as a team. And I just can't thank our staff enough for trusting in me and trusting in each other, and our school board for just telling us go, go, go. And for our parents. I mean, our parents were our best allies in this COVID thing, and without them we wouldn't have been successful. And you know, we had, as you know, 0 COVID cases that were traced to the school as a source, no source COVID cases, and that was our goal.
You know, when we talk about the there's a lot of charter schools that people can, you know, you search up Oregon charter schools. How many charter schools are there in Oregon?
There's a fair number.
There's a fair number of them. So with all of those choices, why did Alsea's, why did Learn at Home, why did that skyrocket proportionately more than other long-term established charters? It's because of the word of mouth. It's because of passion and compassion that the messaging was very clear, and there was follow through on it.
It's kind of a microcosm of what being governor will be for all the people in Oregon. Because the same way we serve everybody here in Alsea, every kid, every student, every staff, every family, I want to be a governor that represents all Oregonians, and I have the track record to follow through with that, so that everyone, you know, and you have disagreements and agreements, but everyone will feel listened to. They'll feel validated. And as you know, what's my mantra? Our job is to listen and do. So as governor, I'm going to listen and do. And you will see results, Oregon, if you trust in me. I appreciate your support.